ready?
Got open man, DJ Moore, end zone, touchdown! Touchdown Bears!
I am Jeff Joniak.
Blitz is on, down he goes! Brisker!
What was it like playing for Coach Ditka?
I don't want to answer any questions like that.
Pressure coming, he's in big trouble, down he goes! Montez Sweat!
And now, Bears Etc., brought to you by Miller Lite, with the voices of the Bears, Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer.
Well, it was a big Bears weekend in Canton, Ohio, what with the Hall of Fame enshrinement of Steve McMichael, Devin Hester, and Julius Peppers, and a Bears rain-shortened preseason win over the Houston Texans. Hats off to the large number of Bears fans who made that trip to 2121 George Halas Drive there in Canton, Ohio. It was a lot of fun. Welcome in, everyone. I'm the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak, with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer. And our special guest this week is Bears special teams coordinator Richard Hightower. This episode of the Bears Etc. podcast is brought to you by Miller Lite. Richard, how you doing? Welcome. And back home, nestled in. Got the first, Tom and I were talking about, we had to get past the Hall of Fame. You don't want to just run past the Hall of Fame, but now you get into the preseason and the nuts and bolts of what's going on.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jeff and Tom, for having me. Hall of Fame was definitely exciting. Excited to see all those guys go in, and excited to see our players when Devin spoke to them, just how they lit up. They're big fans of his, and obviously we show a lot of his clips in the meeting room just to pay homage and to make sure they know the ground that's been laid before them.
Hey, Tommy, one thing I mentioned to you, but I want to mention it while Richard's here. I was there as well, but I was purposely looking at all the players when Devin was speaking, and Jimbo Covert for that matter too. Jimbo commands a room. He's got a presence, and they were nodding their heads. That means you knew they were engaged, right? And a lot of guys wanted pictures with those guys. Tom, I know you called with me every one of those 19 return touchdowns that he had with us. You were as much a part of it because your excitement was bleeding through almost every one of those play calls.
Yeah, I spent my whole career on kickoff return. And every single game I ever played, I was on it. So I know the appreciation of the performance of their role on kickoff return. And I know the difficulty of the role in the kickoff return game. So all due respect to Devin and all the great returners throughout NFL history, I really appreciate the fact that Devin got its due and his recognition for something that did something really special in his time as an NFL player.
Richard, will this open up the door for more? There's a lot of returners in this game that have excelled. I mean, we listed a bunch last week. You know who they are. You studied it.
Yeah, well, let's just hope so. I know there's a lot of guys that are inspired and motivated by what Devin did. So hope so.
How long does it take you to watch the athleticism of some of these players that maybe have never played special teams, because a lot of them had a starring role on their college teams? But does it take to the first live action like the Hall of Fame game, or can you kind of get a feel of their athleticism and how they pertain to the different job requirements on the different special teams?
Yeah, I tell you what, Tom, that's outstanding way to look at it. You can tell a little bit, but you never really know until you get them in the game. And as you know, you played. So, it's different out there. It's a lot of space.
It was incredible because I think the whole offseason I've been as excited for kickoff and kickoff return because I was that disappointed in what happened to it. And I think going forward, it's going to be interesting to see how all of you special teams coaches approach the design, the development of your guys' type of drawing room of how you're going to put up the different types of returns. So I got to say that the excitement, it hasn't faded. But did you learn anything from the initial examples? And I was thinking behind the scenes, I bet you every single special teams coordinator is looking at that first Hall of Fame game just to whether it's getting the timing of contact, how long you got to hold your block, what can be the results of everything that's going to stand behind your guys' development of that one play.
Yeah, I mean, we took away, definitely you can use different body types with it. And then angles are really important. And then we're going to test and experiment with different blocking schemes as we go. But yeah, you're right. Everyone was glued in, got a couple messages after, and we'll be glued in here as these preseason games go, because we're going to watch every kickoff return there is this preseason.
I mean,
just a yes/no answer. Do you think we'll ever see offensive linemen on the kickoff return team? Because that's what they do repetitiously, and it's like the distance between a guard and a linebacker.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, Richard. I would be begging you. I would be begging you to put me on it.
Unless you come back, I don't think so.
a reminder, we are brought to you by our great friends at Miller Lite. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. I know I got a release from the NFL. They call it the dynamic kickoff, and they have all the alignments and design to explain things. I'm curious, on those text messages you got, were they fans or coaches? Are just friends of yours, and what were their impressions, if I may ask, in terms of what they saw there?
Yeah, coaches just curious about what we experienced live, So and then just giving their take on what they saw. Like, they see it as a big potential for big plays. Although the kickoff team won, I would say, last week, but if there's a seam in there now, it can go quick now, Jeff.
Well, hey, listen, somebody put it on Twitter. They broke down, it was just a block away from a big run on one of those, right? You know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that just gets you excited, though, right?
Yeah. We think it's going to be dynamic, and just being a part of putting that thing together. I was so honored and grateful to work with the competition committee, Troy Vincent, and obviously Commissioner Goodell, and Darren Rizzi and John Fossil, and all the rest of the special coaches participated as well. But we're excited.
How did that all come about, by the way? Was it a reach out to you specifically and those other guys, or did you put your hand up and say, hey, I want to help out here and figure out the right plan?
Yeah, it was a reach out. So they basically reached out to us, and I'm more than honored, and I want to help make the game better for not only our fans, our players, and the game going forward. You want to do something good for the game.
When this all came about, did you have to have conversations with Cairo in terms of either hang time or lack of hang time, or field positioning, or where you wanted to place the football? Or was that just something that came with the more reps you did, the more you learned about it?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, Tom. We talked about it almost every day, when we could, when he was in the building, and we're still tinkering with it. But it's we're fortunate because he has a lot of tricks in his bag, and he can do a lot of different things.
A better tackling kicker ever be inserted in the game throughout the multiple games that you'll be a part of throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it comes about. I know that the tackling rate was close to what in our studies, the tackling rate for the kicker was close to what it was in the NFL in the studies that we did. So hopefully he's not as involved, but if he is, I can see it going that route.
In the kickoff coverage team, is it more defensive personnel centric because of offensive players just repetitiously in their time as a football player, especially achieving this level? That's not something they're as familiar with as the guys that have a defensive role throughout their career?
Yeah, I think you could say that. And then, you got the few sprinkled offensive guys in there that like to hit,
Yeah.
Rich McKay, obviously a member of the competition committee for a long time and chairing that committee, but he said by 2023, only 21% of the kickoffs were returned, and projected 50 to 60% to be returned in 24, which would add roughly 1,000 plays to the NFL season. 80% of the drives last season started around the 25. Projections this year, 40% of the drives at the 30 or higher, and another 30% inside the 20. Certainly you don't want that as an offensive team, but from a defensive standpoint, backing them up, I'm hoping that number rises for our guys on the defense, obviously, and the remaining 30% between the 20 and 30. Do those all mesh with your thinking as a special team coordinator?
They do.
Yeah.
They do, Jeff. And Rich was awesome to work with. He's very bright, and all of those statistics, that we went through all of that stuff, and that's what makes this so exciting for both sides.
I would recommend to fans, though, Tommy, as well, be patient. Preseason, nobody going to show anything, because I saw some responses to the first 8 kickoffs of our season. They said, what's our game coming to, and blah blah blah. Nothing's changed. But I know all three of us disagree. It's going to make a major impact in your viewing and your excitement for football.
Richard, do you think that the Senior Bowl will adopt this type of kickoff return to get maybe more reps in the eyes of the special team coordinators on an NFL level, or else at least letting it get into the mind of some of these kids that that's the way they're going to make teams initially?
Yeah, I would sure hope so. I think, the East-West game, the Senior Bowl, and hopefully it trickles down to some of the lower levels, and they've seen what we've done, reducing the speed and the space and helping to get more returns in the game. I would hope so.
I was reading some of your comments from the podium and talking a little bit about the 12th man on the field, and I think that caught some people by surprise because it kind of snuck out in the media. And so how did you guys go about, and I see that you said that they are talking about using the sticks that the kickers use to hold the ball up. And I like the option that you guys came to of letting the actual person hold the football for the kicker and then just subtly back out of there and not take part in the action.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Yeah, sure, Tom. Originally, we talked about, having the kicking stick out there and an official grabbing the stick, but just, after just going through several different conversations, using a player that was up front, and then you would be short a player, we said, well, heck, it's going to be weird, but why don't we just put a 12th guy out there and get him right off, and he can't impede the play or anything like that, and it ended up working out pretty good. I'm glad we got it on tape so we could see it, because this thing is still a work in progress. It'll be all preseason for sure.
So, in the old kickoff coverage, you used to have the luxury of having basically your fastest guy on the team be some sort of safety. Do you have that luxury anymore, or is it all 10 attack plus the kicker?
Yeah, I think it's going to vary. I think the one thing about it is you could have some of your starters on there that could play, some safety positions, and if you need to, or you could have some guys go down and go tackle. Just depends on where you want to kick the ball, All
right, one more question. Would you ever have the kicker get bigger shoulder pads in case they're involved in tackling a little bit more?
Hey,
that's kind of a serious question.
It is. Believe it or not, we did a tackling circuit 2 days ago, and all specialists were involved.
Did you really? How'd that go?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Awesome. Flus loved it. We loved it.
Well, I know coaches love it. Did the players love it? That's the question.
Yeah, they know the importance of it, Jeff, and we do it. We don't do it every week, but when we do it, they get jacked up about it. So there was a good response there.
Well, the funny thing is, Flus has a very specific way to tackle. So,
oh, yeah.
Aiming at those hamstrings, right?
Hamstring tackle, baby.
Hamstring tackle. Vizzy Hard Seltzer, flavors for every vibe. Celebrate responsibly. Molson Coors Beverage Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
It's funny, Coach Hightower, is that how personal kickers take when someone breaks beyond the line of defense and how determined they are to make a tackle, because, Kevin Butler was a great tackler for the Bears. Robbie Gould made some big hits as well. And I think, these kickers and punters, that attitude, it goes from 0 to 100 as soon as they see a guy in the open field.
Yeah, no question. You named some great ones there, and, we're just trying to make sure if we're called upon the tackle that we're ready to do it, Is
there any more? So you play the Texans the second week of the season, of vanilla offense, defense, and special teams. Can you unveil a little bit more against a team like Buffalo that you won't play in the regular season? Or is that more something that you work on behind the scenes, and then when you get to the regular season, it's the, open up the playbook?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both, especially with this new kickoff return rule. But, basically, that first preseason game's vanilla. Is install day one. And then I think you just go to your next install. It's try to keep it still simple so the guys can play fast enough, and then you'll keep some cards close to your vest for later in the season.
Was keeping Torrey Taylor out of the first Hall of Fame game, was that just to give the other punter an opportunity to get involved in the show, or are you just holding Torrey back a little bit before he gets into the 17-game stretch?
Yeah, I think it could be looked at both ways. You know, we kind of we held out a lot of guys organizationally, and Torrey fell in that bucket just because of who he is and where we drafted him and all that stuff. But I tell you what, we wanted to showcase Corliss too, man, because he's earned those reps.
Yes.
He's done a nice job in practice. He's earned them.
You guys have done a great job with both of those punters. I think some of the punts that I've seen in training camp, maybe some of the best that I've seen since I've been a part of the Bears. Having a right-footed and left-footed punter with that type of power, it's a nice luxury for you to have.
Thank you. Appreciate you saying that, Tom. We're excited about it.
Yeah, and it's nice to have that. I know Bill Belichick always had a left-footed punter in preseason just to get guys ready for the different spin. But this guy's legitimate. I mean, people have been asking me, who is this guy? Well, his name is Corliss Waitman. He's got a name. He's not just the other punter, right? Because everybody, I asked Santos. We had him last week, actually. We had him last week on the podcast, or on Bears Weekly, pardon me. And Tom asked him, what's your impression of Torrey? And he goes, alien. That's what he said about it. But great punters are hard to find. There's plenty of good punters, and then some punters, have to work their way around the league to get an opportunity, and maybe it connects some way. But do you find it more challenging to find a really great punter versus a great kicker, a field goal kicker?
Yeah, I would say so. That's a good point. I mean, it's you're right. It's very hard to find a great one. A lot of guys can do it and do it for a while, but that position is always in flux. Because you have such limited opportunities. So you got to make the most of your opportunities.
Before we let you go, just a little review of some of the guys that made plays in that game. Colin Johnson in on a tackle. That was awesome to see because, and I know you brought it up on, Sunday that, you asked, hey, maybe you don't want to be on. No, he wants to stay on the kick. He knows this is a pathway. And if you don't have to convince guys that it's a pathway, you got something good going on.
No doubt about it. He, I can't say enough good things about Colin Johnson, man. He's a really good person, and he's a good football player, but he's an even better person. And I'm just so happy for him and happy that he's a part of history.
Coach Hightower, so, when you bring in a new holder to a football program and a kicker, how do you make sure that he has an understanding of where the ball wants to be, the lean to it in certain distances, and how do you evaluate a holder that's new on the scene as far as the Bears are concerned?
Yeah, well, you look at all the college tape for sure, and then you look at all the combine tape, and then once you get him in, you do various different drills with him, and then you let your kicker kind of talk to him and try to educate him on different wind patterns and when he needs the ball leaned a certain way or not. But Cairo's been phenomenal with Torrey, and Torrey has really good hands. So that's number one for being a holder. He has really good hands.
You talked about Coach Flus and how he gravitates towards the special teams. When you become a head coach, are you always going to gravitate towards the special teams of the team that you coach?
I don't know. Hopefully, if that ever happens, hopefully the special teams coordinator lets me be involved. He may kick me away from it.
No, listen, man, that phase of football is never going to go far away from you.
Third year with the Bears, 4th overall, also an assistant here in 2016, but 17 years experience with the Bears, Houston, Washington, Cleveland, and San Francisco. Also in your background, you were an assistant defensive back coach. You were a wide receiver coach at the University of Minnesota, coaching guys like Eric Decker. University of Texas, 3-year letterman and special team standout, a walk-on, and the Shrine Game head coach for the East last year. So your background continues to expand and grow with every passing day and every passing season. How do you feel about what your career has brought you in terms of these opportunities and how you've taken advantage of them?
Yeah, I tell you what, Jeff, I am eternally grateful to the McCaskey family. I think I've said it before, just for giving me the opportunities, Coach Flus and Ryan Poles, for putting me in those positions. And then also, I just think, it's a blessing every day. I wake up and pinch myself every day because this is what I always wanted to do, was be around football. So ever since I was a marketing intern with the Texans.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
I wanted to be around football.
I didn't know that. Marketing intern.
Yeah, that's how I started. Yep. I started as a marketing intern. Yep.
Wow.
And
That's the NFL's version of a walk-on.
that's the NFL version. I learned how to operate a pallet jack was my first job.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, everybody's got to start somewhere. Right. That is for sure. Yeah. Well, we appreciate all your time, man. We could spend a lot of time talking about all aspects of special teams. So much attention needs to be paid to it because, and then this is what my beef was about the fact that Devin Hester was the first to get into the Hall of Fame in the return game. We keep talking about it. It's the third phase. It doesn't mean it's the last phase. It may be the first phase on a game day, and if you get a special teams takeaway, that's another big chance of getting more winning percentage goes up. So the impact of special teams is significant. And we got some guys, man. We got, Velus Jones is a tailor-made kick returner. His body, the way he rolls. You got DeAndre Carter there. You got all kind of options that you're trying out in the punt return game as well. Do you feel comfortable with the choices you have before you?
Yeah. I mean, Ryan and his staff have done a phenomenal job of providing us talent, acquiring talent. So just happy about it.
Coach Hightower, so when we're at 90 guys throughout training camp and then they go to the 53 game day roster, does it seem like there's a lot less people for you to make choices on, and then you kind of increase the workload of a couple of guys? Because even when I sit out there and I see 90, and then after they go to the final cut down, then you look back on the field, it's almost like, God, where did everybody go? And do you feel the same when you're trying to put together all the multiple teams and then the depth of every team that you have to put together?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, going from that many guys, down, but you just have to monitor the reps. And then you there's certain guys like, that are going to be here playing for you. So you try to take care of those guys on the front end, make sure they get what they need, take care of those guys on the front end, and then try to see if you can get an evaluation on the back end guys.
We're brought to you by PNC, official bank of the Bears. Okay, last thing. I interviewed Charles Tillman in Canton after Devin's enshrinement backstage, and he said he thought he was in 17 of those kick returns as a starting cornerback. Like today, if you put a starting cornerback in there, people might start getting upset, like the fear of injury.
Right.
Times have changed, right?
Yeah. No, they've changed big time, and Charles is awesome. Every time he comes and talks to the team, I mean, I could only imagine how awesome that was for him to be on the field with Devin. Just a phenomenal human being, Charles is.
Sure is. Tom, we got to run. Richard, thank you so much for all your time, and good luck in the rest of the preseason getting this team ready to go. Appreciate your time.
Offensive lineman, kickoff return. Don't lose that thought.
Don't lose that thought. Hey, thank you, Tom. And
thank you, Richard.
You guys do a great job. So really appreciate you. Bears are fortunate to have you guys. We're fortunate to have you.
Nice of you to say, Richard. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We're brought to you by PNC, official bank of the Bears. So good conversation. We could have talked a long while with Richard. I would have loved to get in more in the return game and the specifics, but John Johnson had a good return. The rookie out of Nevada, the teammate of Caleb Williams, his best buddy from USC, 31-yard return.
One thing about the kickoff return, it's in such the infancy stages that I think this is something that you and I are going to be talking about all the way through the preseason, and then I think it's going to reignite the conversation before the start of the regular season, because that's when I think we'll be exposed to a little bit more creativity on the kickoff return front.
Would you like to see some special teams coordinators here in the preseason test certain things out just to keep people aware? Okay, when you got two returners back there could be a reverse play. There could be some sort of trickery and just stash it away. I know you don't want to give up the playbook by any means, but just put everybody to the test here just a smidge so you don't just think it's going to be a normal running play.
Yes. First of all, I was serious about having offensive linemen on the kickoff return team, and I could have them play both sides. I could have them maybe line up on the right side at one time, the left on the other, either part of a deception or a point of attack. So I do think there are athletes that are good enough at the offensive line position that they can play on kickoff return. Why can I play on it through my whole career and be deep in the wedge? And now when you're at a closer point of contact, that you can't be there because that's what you do repetitiously. And then one other point. So, and I always think about that, and I think about it a lot more now in this new kickoff, is when I went to high school, we had 2 kickers approach the ball.
Wow.
And if you had 2 kickers where you could, one kicked and one was a pursuit guy, it would just create more deception in terms of where the ball is going to go. Then maybe you have to have 2 returners back there and take one guy out of the upfront blocking scheme.
Well, I know your mind takes you to very different places because it's Tom's thoughts. That's for sure. Tastes like Miller time. Go to MillerLite.com/BearsPod to find delivery options near you. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. I know Patrick Scales did not practice the other day, so they brought back Lyons, the long snapper. Any concerns?
I always have concerns when you have a guy that plays a really important role in the scoring of this football team, extra point and field goals, and how many snaps Patrick has throughout his career. You definitely want him to start the season healthy. So if there's any concern about any type of injury, then get it healed up before that first regular season game. But I think one thing about Ryan Poles, he does his due diligence in scouting, and if someone's here in a backup role, they're capable of doing what they're being asked to do.
I read somewhere that people, this is one more about the kick return, and we'll talk about our game and what you saw on tape as we get ready for week 2 in Buffalo. The idea that there could be more teams going for it on 4th down because of the return game now. If it's a touchback, it's the 30. If they get a good return, you're talking about a couple of plays, and now you're near midfield and facing a 4th down as opposed to a different scenario a year ago when you're getting the ball at the 25. I know it's only 5 yards. I know it's different, but if these returns start cranking up a little bit, is that one of the consequences of this? Will more teams go for it on 4th down near midfield and fewer punts?
You know, I mean, it's a super sensitive play because what's the down and distance? What is your talent level to be able to have success, and convert it? You look at the Bears. They had a 4th and 1 in the game the other day, and 4th and less than 1. They jumped off sides, and then they had a punt. So, is it going to be the tush push, the Philly play? Is what type of what type of talent do you have and able to have the confidence to convert it? And if you don't have discipline on the line of scrimmage and the defense makes aggressive calls and you jump because of it, then you're just back to punting. So I think it all depends on the maturity of your football team, in the confidence the offensive coach has in the type of play he can call.
Vizzy Hard Seltzer, flavors for every vibe. Celebrate responsibly. Molson Coors Beverage Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So the Bears return to practice on Tuesday. Get back in pads and get ready for that Buffalo game end of the week. What'd you see on tape that caught your attention on both sides of the ball?
Discipline. And, the thing about it is the Bears, and throughout training camp, because of the way the defense plays around with their movement up front, the first team offense has been susceptible to have, some penalties at the line of scrimmage. And I thought the group of guys that Flus and his staff got ready to play in the game, they put a lot of discipline on display, whether it's a 2-minute drill, concentrating on the verbal count at the line of scrimmage, Colin Johnson being able to have a drop and then rebound with some significant catches. You just know that he's mentally strong and it didn't affect him. I thought the tight end position played really well, even though Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett were not in there. I thought Richard Hightower and his special teams did a nice job, but the more we see kickoff return, I think the more interest the fan base will gain. I like what I saw out of, the defense as after the first drive. I think the defense went back to the sideline, got some coaching points, and played a better style of defense from that point on. So there was a lot just encouraging team signs that I think that you can go back, watch it on tape, and then specific techniques. I think that a lot of these guys can get positively reinforced within a week's time of making sure what they're doing in practice can work on the game field.
Yeah, they allowed less than 3 yards of carry in the run game. Offensively, some really good numbers, 8 double-digit plays in the range shortened to fair. But of concern, I guess, would be the after effect of that on the offensive line with some players down in the first couple practices back at Hallis Hall. What concerns do you have leading into that game against Buffalo, when we do expect to see Caleb Williams as the starting quarterback to start the game?
My only concern is whomever is injured, are they going to be healthy by week 1 of the regular season? My interest is the guys that are getting reps in place of the injured players. You got to look at this as an opportunity of a lifetime, because when you have 3 preseason games in the NFL, I know they play the starters a limited amount of reps. But if there is a starter there that has an injury of concern, they're looking for the replacement. And then who is, living up to the billing that they have the capabilities of starting early season games in the NFL. And then when you have a quarterback like Caleb Williams, you want consistency, man. You want him to see and understand the guys up in front of him, and they understand him, and they understand the rhythm of his count. And I think it plays such a significant role that week 1, the offensive line is going to be able to hear Caleb's cadence. Week 2, they are not going to be able to hear his cadence. So they have to understand his timing, his thinking. He's a young quarterback, and maybe he may think the huddle call maybe 3/4 of a second longer than an experienced quarterback would. And then that challenges the rhythm of the offensive line.
Vizzy Hard Seltzer, flavors for every vibe. Celebrate responsibly. Molson Coors Beverage Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and PNC Bank, one of our sponsors, brought to you by the official bank of the Bears. I know there's a lot of work to be done before that Buffalo game. Another road affair before Cincinnati comes late next week to practice before we play them at Soldier Field. But now it's like a different runway, as I alluded to in the outset here, isn't it?
You are 100% correct, Jeff. I think anytime that you put the starters into a game, the evaluation has begun. The seriousness of the evaluation is starting to take place. And it's not something you can just say, oh, it's, we got time to take care of this. No, every single rep that a premium player gets during the course of a preseason game is strictly evaluated. And if you make a mistake, how do you improve it? If you make a mental error, do you get back into your tablet and start studying more? And so all these little things that you have to evaluate, from Richard Hightower on the special teams to Shane Waldron and to Eric Washington and Flus on the defensive side of the ball. I'm glad you brought that up, because there is a whole nother level of seriousness when you start chipping away at these preseason games.
All right, lastly, you were at Steve McMichael's home when he got his gold jacket and bust there with your former teammates as well, all his teammates and friends. What impression were you left with when you experienced that and then left? I'm sure it was on your mind as you were driving back home.
Yeah, it's on my mind. The first impression is, so you walk into Steve's house, and he had his bed pushed out in the living room, so there's a little bit more room. And since Steve has lost the ability to talk, when you stand above him and you make eye contact with him, and he knows you're there and you know what he's going through, you don't even need to say anything. You don't need to talk. It's just allowing each other to see each other, and you kind of read the appreciation in my eyes to him. And then you see him looking back at you, and you have no idea what's going through his mind or what's happening, but it's, a sad set of circumstances that he's fighting through on the greatest award in an athlete's life. When you get announced by all your peers that you are going into the Hall of Fame, and it's because what you accomplished, it's what you dedicated to the Chicago Bears in the NFL. And for them to unveil that bust in front of all of us there, it's emotional. It's a beautiful job.
Well, it looks just like him as a player.
Exactly.
I mean, exactly. Yeah.
I was so surprised because I've been, disappointed in going to the Hall of Fame and looking at the bust of some of the players going, wow, it's not a very good resemblance of him. But when they, Macy, his daughter, and Misty, his wife, when they unveiled the bust, I was blown away.
Yeah.
Of just how much it looked like the Steve McMichael who is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He looks so different right now, obviously, for the disease he's fighting. However, when people see that bust for years to come, they're going to know what Steve McMichael looked like.
Here's what we missed, and here's what he missed. We missed his speech.
Yes.
We missed him at the Gold Jacket dinner when you would walk down the long runway to shake hands and get hugs from your fellow Hall of Famers from years gone by. And I'm not quite sure how that would have gone down. It would have been epic, I feel. Just knowing him, and I think he would not have, listen, everybody thinks it's all show. He would have respected the game. He would have respected the moment. I truly feel that, but it would be a passionate delivery and a passionate response. No question.
Well, you talked about you sitting there talking to Chris Berman before the Gold Jacket, and you saw all the other Hall of Famers that were coming in and out of the building. Steve McMichael, Ming, Mongo, whatever you want to call him, he belongs with all those guys. And for you being able to be and have a hands-on approach to seeing all those guys come in the room, Steve McMichael deserves to walk in that room with that same brash cockiness, arrogance, confidence that anybody can ever walk into a room with, because he carried it as well as anybody when he walked into a room.
Sure did. Tom, thanks. We'll talk to you, everybody, on Thursday, our next podcast drop, and we'll preview what happens against the Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park, New York. Special thanks to Bears Special Teams Coordinator Richard Hightower. For Tom, I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please subscribe now on the Chicago Bears official app, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Bear down.